we're living in a system that has a head prostitute who runs this whole system of a hireling, which is considered to be definition of a prostitute. A prostitute was a hireling. Uh, not not uncanny. Would the term idolater mean hired servant wages? So you can understand that they control everybody by hours. You don't even pronounce the H in hours, so they just sit on that symbolic, lowercase h, like a seat, and they know that you're ours because they basically control you through wages and gambling and you playing around with a title that's not yours, and then you're at the mercy of whatever comes with that debtor position. So when we look at the scripture, the harlot was, of course, pointing to Rome and pointing to this civil system, but the head of it being the sin programs. You register into sin, and legal is a big collection plate. It means to collect. It is not law, which is laid down and established. So don't confuse the two. Law is not legal. And therefore, this legal collection plate of debt is run worldwide under a harlot, a prostitute, a big madam, in theory, that operates all the continents. So when we look at the scripture, it pointed in the book of Revelation, chapter 17, speaking in verse 5, that there was Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. And right now that mother of abominations, harlots, is planning on putting an abomination into your body, the abomination that causes desolation, standing in the holy place, because you are the temple. So you will start to see people putting this abomination into their body, and you're going to be told to flee, of course, when that's happening, to get away from these areas that are basically installing this type of program. They'll be putting the security of their legal person in your body, your holy temple, and that will be an abomination. Now, when you look at verse 9 in chapter 17, it says, "Here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits." So we know this does, to an extent, describe the area around Vatican City, but symbolically, it goes a little further than that. So what is unique about our society today, it is operated under what is 7 mountains of societal influence, because they influence you, even with false knowledge about influence. So we're going to leave that alone, because I don't want to get into having the video taken down, but we know what I'm talking about on the medical side of things, the worldwide program that's out there to basically inject bad influence into you. Now, the 7 mountains of societal influence are actually broken down into 7 categories. So the first one, of course, is religion. Makes sense. So you're going to run false religion, which represents this Babylon, this harlot. So the head of this, of course, sits in Rome there, collecting in on all this legal sin program. Then the next part of the influence is, number 2, would be family. Now we know family, for our research, is only relating to the stock. The name, it doesn't mean what you think in standard English. It actually is only meaning the Roman version of it, which was from the highest legal master to the lowest legal servant in the household. So that is family, and that's what you have to understand, why it's written on even tickets that you would get. They'll always put the family name down there on it, because it's to connect you to the Roman definition, and actually the last name, which is the tag name that belongs to the Roman Catholic Church under the civil system. Can't run a good collection plate for debtors unless you have a debtor tag name on everybody. So the next one is education. Of course, I'm going to have to educate you in this. So I have to get you into the system. So, of course, they're going to institutionalize all who get into the public system. Public is tax, so you need to have John with his public name, John Q. Public, there to be out there as a tax collector, harvesting in and farming this tax. And of course, the education system trains, so the child goes, into a school system, a public school system, of course, gets on to the public transit on average, and then basically gets his little coffee break, we'll call it recess, at mid-morning, and then basically by noon, the lunch break, the bell goes off. Then of course 2 o'clock, the next coffee break, which is really just, they'll call it recess at that time. And then of course the bell rings off to go back onto the public transit, go home. You put your hours in for work, and therefore you've worked for hours, and they're just laughing at you because they sit on a throne doing nothing, watching you work for them. So they know that you're out there, you belong to them based on the term hours. So the next one, of course, is the government. They run the government, so they operate right within there. It's a little crime ring going on. So that's why everybody kisses the Pope's ring when he comes in, because he's the head crime, ringleader of this whole setup. Look up Black's Law of Fourth. I'm not going to go and read it right now, but Black's Law of Fourth, you can look up the definition for ring, and you'll find out that it's a big setup. The whole thing is run as a setup under this system. And of course, people, of course, have put faith in those governments, so it's even worse. They actually believe that they have a say, but they mark the ballot boxes with an X, which would not be a check mark, which says it's wrong, which means you don't really have a vote. You're in error, thinking that you do. The next one is the media. Okay, well, the media controls everything. We know that that came from, originally it does lead back to the Medes and Persians. And of course, they can block out anything they want. Media blockouts. They'll even put a gag order on things because it's just a big joke. The whole thing is running on punishment for those who do not see what's going on. But certainly, the media, the Medes and Persians, were magi tricksters, so they're very, very well practiced at deceiving what is called the public. And then, of course, the arts and entertainment comes in next. Now I got to entertain you with artifices to keep your mind occupied, because I've just drained you during the day, so I want you to come back and just lay in front of a vision that comes from them called television, and therefore they just give you what their basic direction is to control and brainwash the mind. And then the last one, of course, is business, because I got to run the business on this, so we're going to run the economics on it. So the business basically relates to that, and of course they're going to control the debt with a debtor name. Therefore, it runs all business. There's no business that's not going to operate without that legal tag. You're not going to open up a bank account without that legal tag. That's all within the schematic. So there's your 7, societal influences. We'll read them. We'll read them off one more time, just one in a row. We have religion. Number 2 is family. Number 3 is education. Number 4 is government. Number 5 is media. Number 6 is arts and entertainment. And number 7 is business. So hopefully that enlightened you on it, and you'll realize how this does reflect. Of course, there also are 7 continents. Okay, so isn't that interesting? We have 7 continents where all this goes on, and there are 7 summits, major mountain range summits in the world. 7 highest peak summits occur. So don't they run summits? So we'll leave it at that. The Gentile 20 are out there. The Gentile 20 nations are out there, and of course they operate within this control factor of these, this system that has so much influence over everything that they do. So there isn't a single thing that has not, been placed in front of us to see. But hopefully, the veil of blindness from fiction comes off, and you're starting to see the truth.